Welcome back to Daily Persuasion. I'm Joshua Lisec, and today I'd like to teach you a tip from science communication, also known as technical writing. I, of course, am the New York Times bestselling author and co-author, ghostwriter of 99 now nonfiction books, and a certified hypnotist. Through this unique lens of experiences, I curate lessons from the day's news and teach you how to better influence the VIPs in your life and in your career. We've covered all manner of topics from Donald Trump and the election and electoral politics and shenanigans with his administration and its opposition on this channel. We also talk about what's going on in the culture, things like dating and relationships and what new celebrity bombshell has been dropped, because there's so much that we can peel back from the headlines to learn to improve our own influence abilities to get what we want. And like I always tell my 7-year-old son, persuasion is where you make it easier for the other person to say yes to what you want. And I want to talk to you about just that today. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be speaking at a science and engineering tech event. And what does a person who does not have science, tech, engineering, mathematics degrees know about such things? Well, you might not know, or perhaps you do, that I have ghostwritten a number of books that are on these topics. Now, they are not academic texts. They are in the vernacular, meaning they're taking what a surgeon, a doctor, a researcher, a physicist knows, and I'm translating it for the public. And the number one most important tip I can give you that I have picked up through practice in this space is, who's it for? I'll say it again. Who's it for? Just today, I was talking to somebody who he has a corporate organization, but his solutions he sells, large businesses, are extremely technical in nature. So what do you think was the first question I asked this person, who wants to do a book, I should say also? I said, who's the decision maker? So in this case, he sells a sophisticated B to E, not even B to B, B to E, business to enterprise. Meaning he sells not to simply businesses of 500 people that do a few $1 million a year, but let's call them, 11-figure businesses. 11-figure businesses. People talk about having a 5K or a five-figure month income as a freelancer as the dream. Let's talk about 11 figures. Okay, that's like tens of billions, right? Okay, that's B to E. Extremely technical in scope and in nature. However, his decision maker is not just the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer. It's going to be the CEO, who has less of a technical background and is more so positioned to lead the organization, the people element. And yes, call the shots as needed, of course. But these are people with business backgrounds. They're familiar with technology, obviously, but they need to have some of this more, frankly, technical, dense material translated for them. So when you are taking something that's technical or complicated from something that's technical and complex, but you speak the language if you're in that space, we want to translate it. And when you translate something on Google Translate, what does it say? What language do you want to translate it into? Are you going from Afrikaans to English or Afrikaans to, let's say, Punjabi? Okay. That's kind of important when you think about translation, because there's lots of nuance that's going to show up depending on which language you're translating it to, because there is no such thing as a universal translation. You don't translate it from Afrikaans to just another language. Just pick one. They're all the same. Nope. Doesn't work that way. You also have to think about the culture and what different phrases mean. There are so many turns of the phrase that I learned when I was studying Spanish at university that when you translate it literally into English, it makes no sense. And when you translate common expressions in English from English and Spanish, they make absolutely no sense. So you have to understand these things. You have to understand that a literal word-for-word translation from one language to another often makes no sense. But what we use in science communication, technical writing, is metaphors and analogies. We take what they most likely already understand and we give examples. For example, you might already be familiar with, so you simply explain the new thing. You build a bridge of understanding. Let's say you take a topic that is 3 levels of sophistication deep. Okay, you might then, okay, let's give an example. Wing warping. Okay, aerospace engineering. Let's talk about wing warping. How does wing warping work? You know how seagulls, when they're flying up above the beach, you're hanging out there, it's a great day, and you see that seagull who's there catching a breeze. He's not even flapping his wings, he's just kind of hanging out there. He's sort of going side to side, like this, side to side. How do they do that? They do it with wing warping. Have you noticed that when their wings are out like this, just come on, put your hands up now. So you have them do it physically, right? Now, if you're there in the person, you're doing speaking, that's one thing. If you're writing, you would say, hold up both of your hands in front of you, and then tilt the one to the left and another to the left, and you draw an illustration, you draw a graph like this of the person doing this, right? And you imagine that when you see that seagull tilt to the left, it's opposite to me, so just play along. When they tilt one way, their wings on the bird, they go this way. When they tilt their wings this way, they go another way. Now, the act of tilting, when you think about the actual physical act of how the tissues, the muscles, the bones, even how they're all working together, their wing shape is warping. Now you understand wing warping. So you use metaphors and you use metaphors like that, because that's ultimately how these discoveries are made, by the way. It was the Wright brothers observing birds in flight, by the way, and notice how they were tilting their wings. I'm from Dayton, Ohio, just like they were, by the way. I will not shut up about that. That is an example of how to do technical writing communication. You want to explain it in terms of what your audience is capable of understanding and what they may or may not already know. Now, you wouldn't necessarily use that metaphor if it's a room full of engineers and you're working on a sophisticated weapons system and you're all aerospace engineers with everyone having a minimum 2 master's degrees in mathematics related subjects. That would not be appropriate. You can get right into the dense material, right? But technical writing, science communication, is communicating largely to a non-technical, non-scientific audience. And that's what you want to do. You start with who the audience is, and this is any subject, by the way, not just sciencey stuff. But if you have an unfamiliar subject matter that most people don't understand, and you're trying to sell them on that solution, you're going to have a bad time unless you watch this video again and do exactly as I say. And as you do exactly as I say, you'll realize not only is it intuitive and easy for you to remember to do it, the metaphors and analogies you need will come to you without you having to prepare for them. You'll find yourself working these things into everyday speech, even with family, friends, and the outcome will be persuasion. You'll be more persuasive than you were before.